thank you for joining us today. We have with us Dr. Ashwin Malia, who's from Sir Ganga Ram Hospital in New Delhi, and Dr. Santosh Wagankar, who is an oncologist and robotic surgeon at Kokalaban Dhirubhai Ambani Hospital in Mumbai, otherwise known as KDAH. It's a long hospital name, but I love that, many years ago when I started with the foundation, I learned how to spell it, and I do love the name of that hospital. It's one of the big hospitals in India. And I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Wagankar, who is a former Vadakuti Fellow, and as is Dr. Malia, and we'll let him begin the program. Once again, thanks for joining us. We appreciate your attendance today. And here I'm making Dr. Wagankar a Zoom host, so he will take over now.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dave. And I'd like to tell you got the name right, KDAH. I am the moderator for this program, and hello to everyone who is viewing this webinar series from India, from the US of A, all around the world. And as you all know, this is a part of the Vattikuti Foundation webinar series, and particularly focusing on the patients, where we discuss on technologies and try to answer patient queries and make them acknowledge and conversant with the technology. Today we have an expert with us, a very good friend of mine, and it's my pleasure to introduce him, Dr. Ashwin Malia, who will be the speaker today, and he'll be talking on the implications and the outcomes of robotic platform in kidney surgery. A brief introduction of Dr. Malia. He has done his specialty training urology from Institute of Nephrology, Bangalore Medical College. He has done his fellowship in minimally invasive urology, followed by a Vattikuti fellowship under Dr. Rajesh Elawat, and is currently a consultant at Sir Ganga Ram Hospital, New Delhi. He has received awards such as the Olympus USA Award in 2015, as well as the Asia Young Urologist Award in 2018. His main interests are urologic oncology, especially prostate and kidney cancer. And his hobbies include music and running, and he does take time off for both. So without much ado, I'm handing it to you, Dr. Malia. Please take it away.
Thank you, Santosh. That was a very kind introduction. So I think what are friends for? Okay. So, and I'd again like to thank Professor Bhandari and the whole team at the Vattikuti Foundation for giving me this opportunity. It's good to be back. It's good to be back associated with the Vattikuti Foundation, and we've always encouraged young surgeons to get into this field and take it forward. And it's a real pleasure to just come and pay it back and be a part of the patient-focused program. I was a part of this a couple of weeks back when Dr. Santosh was the keynote speaker. It really, I'm sure, this platform is very good to disseminate knowledge to, future patients, families, and people who just want to know about robotic surgery, and surgery in general and robotic surgery in particular. And I think the whole holy grail of modern medicine should be patient information. And I think that's where many centers in the world lack. And I think this will go a long way in spreading the word. And I'm sure Dave will do a great job of recording this webinar and putting it up on YouTube for future viewers. The topic for today is how robotics has improved outcomes in surgeries of the kidney. So good evening, everybody. And good morning in the United States. So robotic operations of the kidney, improving outcomes, how we are surging ahead and improving outcomes in various kidney operations. So what is robotic surgery? There was a talk by Dr. Santosh, and if you have missed that talk, I would just kind of give a brief about what robotic surgery is. It's one of the hottest recent technological developments which has emerged in the last 2 decades with widespread application in various regions of the human body, whether it is thoracic surgery, whether it is urology, gynecologic surgery, GI surgery, bariatric surgery. So robotic surgery has made inroads into various areas of the human body. And it's a more advanced version of keyhole surgery. So people generally know about laparoscopic surgery, and it's very widely known as keyhole surgery in India, at least. So this is a very advanced version of keyhole surgery. And as the name suggests, where robots are involved, we have to be more accurate. It definitely has helped in faster recovery of patients. So the general idea that the patients get when we suggest robotic surgery or we counsel patients for robotic surgery. So the patient thinks that there is a robot who is there in the OR and who's going to be operating while we are sipping tea in the cafeteria, which is not exactly true. So we really don't have any transformers like robots, and robots don't take their decisions on their own. So robot is just an advancement which helps the surgeons perform more accurate and more advanced procedures accurately, provide better outcomes, faster recovery, lesser blood loss to the patients. So it's a complete master-slave system wherein we control each and every move of the robot. So the robot is not capable of independent movements. It is not doing anything to the patient without our commands. And even the every movement of the robotic arms is done by the operating surgeon. So be rest assured. So this is a picture which shows robotic surgeons who are sitting on the console, and you can see these robotic arms which carry instruments which are introduced into the patient's body. There is a assistant or a bedside surgeon who is taking part in the surgery and assisting at the side of the patient. There is an anesthetist who's taking care of the patient when he's being operated, when he or she is being operated. So it's a very intricate system. So these surgeons who are performing the surgery, as you can see in the picture, are looking into a console in which they are seeing three-dimensional view of what's happening inside the body, because there is an endoscope camera which is giving the picture to the surgeons who are sitting there. The other robotic arms are basically carrying the instruments, which are again controlled. So I will be showing a video clip so you can get a better idea. So the surgeons are controlling the instruments with the help of master controls so that the surgery can be done very accurately. The person who is sitting besides the patient and assisting is doing the job of assisting the console surgeon in various movements in various areas where there is excess blood loss. They are suctioning out excess blood, and they are helping the console surgeons achieve the adequate amount of traction so that surgery can move forward very well. So this is just a brief about how it is done. So the topic for today, as you know, is about the surgeries of the kidney. Biology 101 for those who have been away from it. So kidneys are situated in the upper part of the abdomen, just beneath the rib cage. The way we approach, they are paired organs. Almost all of us are born with two kidneys. Very rarely you're born with one kidney due to some developmental anomalies. But most of us are born with two kidneys, and they're situated in the upper part of the abdomen. The approach to the kidney is generally done through a position. This is called the flank position, which we usually do. So the patient is lying on one side, and with the side of the kidney that's going to be operated, that side is up. Patient is strapped very securely to the operation table so that we can go ahead and perform surgeries which last 2 to 3 hours, and the patient does not have any problems after the surgery, as in terms of positioning issues and things like that. So all care is taken about that. So I'd just like to briefly tell you how surgery has evolved over the last few decades. So as you know, long incisions have been in vogue ever since maybe 100, 200 years, ever since our surgeons have developed the art of surgery. So the first picture on the left is the typical incision that we use for kidneys when we do open surgery. From open surgery, we moved on to laparoscopic surgery, where a surgeon is standing besides the patient, introducing small instruments through keyhole incisions. So there are ports through which instruments are introduced and surgery is done. And from laparoscopic surgery, we proceeded to robotic surgery. So that has been a game changer in the way things have been done. So let's see why. So what are the issues with open surgery? As you can imagine, when we give such large incisions, so we are going to have more blood loss. So these end up being cosmetically inferior, which is not a key outcome. But try asking a person who's undergone a kidney surgery through a very large incision. He has that scar for his whole life. So these incisions are larger. So that's why there are wound-related complications. When the larger the wound, there could be some wound-related complications like wound infections or hernias later. Not in the kidney surgeries, but other abdominal surgeries Hernias are very common with large incisions. Other issues with open surgery is it takes a longer time to recover, and there's longer time off work, which results in pay loss for the patient, and the pain, post-operative pain, which is a major issue, at least for a couple of weeks following open surgery. It is a big issue. Then we moved on to laparoscopy, which was very good as far as the technology is considered, and we still use it very much. Just as we use open surgery, it's not been relegated to the history books. Neither open surgery nor laparoscopy is relegated to the history books. We still use them in selected cases. So what are the issues with laparoscopy? Laparoscopy had a very steep learning curve. It is not easy to become a good laparoscopic surgeon. It takes a lot of practice over hundreds and hundreds of cases. So the movements are counterintuitive. If you can imagine, the surgeons are operating with long instruments, which are like sticks, with the working element of the instruments being at the tip of those instruments. So you are actually working on counterintuitive movements. So if you want to move the tip of the instrument up, you are having to move the instrument down, because that's the part that's outside the body. So that's the fulcrum effect. So you have counterintuitive movement. For us to get used to that kind of system, it just takes time. It's more difficult to learn. Surgeries that involve stitching inside the body, where we have disconnected some tubes and we are reconnecting some tubes. So stitching inside the body becomes more difficult because it's not easy to perform accurate stitches with laparoscopic instruments. It takes time to develop that skill. We are dependent on a good camera assistant. So if you have a good resident or a fellow with you or a good trained scrub tech, you can have a good time. But if you do not have a good camera assistant who's holding the endoscope for you, things can get messy. In most laparoscopic systems, we have two-dimensional vision. Although there are recent developments in laparoscopy wherein 3D laparoscopy is used, but most systems around the world use a 2D vision. So you're trying to work on a 3-dimensional structure with 2-dimensional vision, which can be difficult. And there is a lot of ergonomic compromise. Ergonomics is basically the way we stand, the way we are positioning ourselves to perform the surgery, and the best fit. Ergonomics is trying to get the best position or the best fit to perform the surgery. So in laparoscopy, you're standing for hours together. Sometimes while operating, we forget that we have a lot of cervical strain, we have shoulder strain, we have wrist strain, we have issues with the muscles of the fingers and the tendons of the fingers. A lot of ergonomic compromise. So while doing the operation, we are totally focused, but we pay a heavy price for it over a long time when we perform laparoscopic surgery over the years. So how have the limitations of laparoscopy, how have they been overcome with the help of robotics? So robotics is a very interesting system where we have intuitive movements. So the way we move our hands is the way the instruments are going to move inside. So there are no counterintuitive. You move it up, it goes up. You move it down, it goes down. We sit on a chair and we are looking into a console and we are operating. So it's much better ergonomically. We can perform long surgeries without much fatigue. Stitching inside the body is much faster and easier. We know it. We have been through the rigmarole of learning laparoscopy and then learning robotics. We know how difficult it is to use laparoscopic instruments to stitch. And then when we learned robotics, we realized it was such a piece of cake and such beautifully done anastomosis. So the learning curve is not as steep as laparoscopy. If we are on it, we can learn these surgeries much faster as compared to learning laparoscopic surgeries. And we have a 3-dimensional vision. So we are operating on 3-dimensional structures with 3-dimensional vision. And we have this immersive technology. So when it looks as though we are sitting inside the body and operating. So we have a 10 times magnification of the field. It appears as though we are sitting inside the field and operating. Other beauty of this robotic instrument is it has this endo-wrist technology, 7 degrees of freedom, just like the human wrist. So all of us agree that the human body is the best robot that has ever been created. I don't think any robot can match up to the human creation. But the people at Intuitive Surgicals have developed the endo-wrist technology, which enables us to move the instruments just like how we move our wrists. So that accurately. It's beautiful when we are using, especially deep in the pelvis, for example, when we are doing prostate surgeries. Moving the instruments in such a small space becomes a very difficult task. But with the help of this endo-wrist technology, we can achieve this very easily. So this is just a few pictures which show the immersive technology, 3-dimensional vision, the endo-wrist technology, the ergonomic positioning of the surgeons while operating. So, is conventional surgery bad for patients? Is it bad? Not really. So, I would really take that statement with a pinch of salt that conventional open surgery is bad. It has been relegated to the history books. That is not true. We still frequently use it in selected cases. It is unlikely to be relegated to the history books in future. It has remained the gold standard for very long and has stood the test of time. We are just making advancements in the way we are doing surgery, but none of us can ever become good robotic surgeons without knowing open surgery. Of course, there are some situations in which we have learned surgery through robotics, for example, the prostate cancer surgery. But most of us have learned open surgery first, laparoscopy, and then the robotic surgery. So conventional surgery is definitely not bad for the patients. It is just patient takes longer to recover. There is more blood loss. And what we are trying to achieve with robotics is the outcome that we have achieved in the past with open surgery in terms of cancer control and things like that. So is robotic surgery always the answer? Is robotic surgery the panacea for every ailment of the kidney, every surgical disease of the kidney? Not really. Indications and complexity of cases undertaken by robotic technology is increasing day by day. For example, radical nephrectomies or cancer kidney surgeries, cancer of the kidney surgeries were performed through open surgery in the past. This was again after open surgery, after laparoscopy came into picture, we have performed it with laparoscopic surgery. So removal of the full kidney along with the surrounding fat is what we do for kidney cancer surgeries. This is done very well by laparoscopy. So we have not really found too much of a benefit by using robotics in removal of the kidney as a whole, not as a part, as a whole. But having said that, there are certain complexity. So when the complexity of the kidney cancer increases, for example, if there is a tumor clot in the big vein of the kidney, okay, surgery has been better performed either with open surgery or robotic surgery. And we have enough scientific evidence now to say that either open or robotic, it is done equally well. And in fact, there are some studies that have shown the superiority of robotics in such complex cases. So robotic surgery is a promising technology that will further undergo fine tuning in future, and it's become a level playing ground if you compare it to laparoscopy. So in laparoscopy, which was a very skill intensive, if you ask me, if I may say so, a very skill intensive specialty in which we would have great laparoscopic surgeons who would do extremely good work, which was followed by not so great laparoscopic surgeons. But when you have a technology like robotics, you will have a lot of people who are good because it is something in which everybody has been able to pick up the skills very fast. So riddle me this. For a given kidney operation, if a modality provides faster recovery, lesser blood loss, equivalent cancer clearance, equivalent preservation of kidney function, lesser time off work, better surgical outcomes for the surgeon, and better ergonomics for the surgeon, which decreases fatigue, which would you prefer? So obviously, if it's a head-to-head, if you give me all these benefits, it's very easy to make a choice towards robotics. So how robotic technology has helped us? So we have, as I already told you, 10x magnification, as in the image is 10 times magnified. We have immersive technology, tremor-free movements. So surgeons who are even in their 60s and 70s, who might have developed some tremor, or who some essential tremor might be there in some surgeons. So all that is eliminated with the robotic technology. So as we know, lesser blood loss, accurate stitches, its ability to reach difficult to reach areas. That's how robotic technology has helped us. So coming to specific situations, specific ailments of the kidney in which robotics is being used. So the first picture on the top is that of a pelviureteric junction obstruction, or in simpler words, blockage of the kidney at the level of the ureter. At the junction of the kidney and the ureter. So ureter is the tube that carries the urine from the kidney to the urinary bladder. So the junction of the kidney and the ureter is where sometimes during the process of development of the human body, there might be a blockage. So we utilize robotics for this surgery, which is also called pyeloplasty. It has been conventionally done open, and we have moved on to doing laparoscopy, and now it's beautifully done robotically. The reason why robotics scores over laparoscopy in this case is the finesse of suturing, the finesse of stitches. I feel it is much secure, much more secure, and it can be done in a much more easier manner as compared to laparoscopy. So I personally have done both, so I know the difference. I can allude to that, the way we do it robotically. So we definitely prefer robotics over laparoscopy in pyeloplasty. Coming to the removal of kidney, whether it's the full kidney or part of the kidney. If the kidney tumor or the kidney cancer is large, we resort to removing the full kidney. So that is done robotically as well as laparoscopically as well as by open surgery. Removing a part of the kidney, in which we remove the tumor alone, as you can see in the picture on the bottom left. We can remove the tumor alone without removing the rest of the kidney and repairing the rest of the kidney, what we call as partial nephrectomy. And this is a classical example in which we have really utilized robotics to the hilt as compared to laparoscopy. I have witnessed very good laparoscopic surgeons do a great job, but if you take, you might get maybe 4 or 5 good laparoscopic surgeons in a city, but you will get at least 10 good robotic surgeons who can perform a great partial nephrectomy in a city, just because of the ease of reconstruction of the kidney. So I personally believe that robotics has been a game changer when it comes to partial nephrectomies. We can provide great outcomes. We can accurately preserve the remaining kidney without causing any complications. We can achieve all that we want to achieve: preservation of kidney function, good cancer control, and preservation of long-term kidney function in patients with robotic partial nephrectomy. So another exciting development which has happened over the last 5 to 6 years has been the development of robotic kidney transplant. So kidney transplants have always been done through open surgery method, and it has been the gold standard. A few great surgeons from across the world, including Dr. Alawat, who has been a great mentor for starting robotic kidney transplant in many centers of the world. Studies have been published now from the Vattikuti Foundation that we are achieving equivalent outcomes to open transplant when we are performing robotic transplant. So just to show you the scars that we get with open kidney transplant compared to robotic kidney transplants. So I don't want to bore the general public with a lot of scientific evidence and scientific jargon, but to just cut a long story short, when we are going for reconstructive operations of the kidney, like pyeloplasty or ureteric reimplantation and things like that, definitely robotics and open surgeries are neck to neck, and I prefer robotic surgery because we can give the benefit of minimally invasive surgery with the finesse of stitching something with an open method. So robotics achieves that goal. So I believe robotics scores over open and laparoscopy. When it comes to removal of the whole kidney, whether it be a diseased kidney or a non-functioning kidney or a cancer kidney, I believe that laparoscopy is definitely as good as robotics for cases that are not very complex. But if it involves tumor clots and tumor thrombus, that's when open and robotic surgeries are both equally good. When it comes to partial removal of the kidney, I feel robotics definitely scores a bit over open surgery. And although scientific evidence has shown that the cancer outcomes are equivalent, the functional outcomes are equivalent, but I believe that as a modern surgeon, I would like to give the benefit of minimally invasive surgery to the patient, and I feel it scores over open surgery. And for kidney transplant, our main goal has been to prove that robotically we are able to achieve equivalent outcomes as open transplantation. And I think things are proceeding well in that direction. Several thousand kidney transplants across the world have been done robotically now with similar outcomes as open kidney transplants. So I think we have to watch this space for more information. And I think it's going to be a game changer as far as kidney transplant is considered. So is this the only way kidney surgeries are going to be performed in future? Is robotics the only kid on the block now, say 20, 30 years down the line? My crystal ball says no. So laparoscopy and open surgery are still very relevant. They have stood the test of time. The costs of robotic surgery have to further come down for it to gain more popularity across the world. As you know, most of the world is developing or underdeveloped. So for robotic technology to penetrate every country and every center, it's going to be difficult. Governments have to be invested in this technology. so that everybody can get this benefit of this robotic surgery. And in some surgeries, for example, I told you laparoscopic radical nephrectomy. So there is no specific advantage of using the robot over laparoscopic surgery. So have the key outcomes. Let us sift through all the disturbance and the turbulence. And so let's come to the key outcomes. Have they really improved with robotics? So when we talk about outcomes, we think about patient-related outcomes and within functional outcomes, cancer outcomes. So depending on the surgery, the outcomes could be very different. The outcomes that we are studying could be very different. So when it comes to patient recovery, yes, robotics has definitely improved the quickness of recovery in patients. Blood loss, yes. I don't remember the last time we transfused blood to a patient during a robotic prostate cancer surgery. Maybe one patient received blood in the last 4 years of my 4 or 5 years of my involvement with the robotic program. Wound complications, yes. When you have such small wounds, it's unlikely that we have wound complications. So the wound complications are much better. Cancer control, as in the margins of the cancer and the lymph nodes that we remove, yield of lymph nodes, and the cancer control have been equivalent as compared to open surgery. Overall survival equivalent to open surgery. The patency rate of reconstructive procedures, for example, pyeloplasty, patency as in whether the tubes that we have joined and or sutured, stitched to each other, whether that tube remains open. So that has been equivalent to open surgery. In kidney transplant, we talk in terms of the kidney transplant graft. We call it a graft. So the graft survival in kidney transplant has been shown to be equivalent to open kidney transplant outcomes. So just a bit about the future of kidney surgery. As I can see, the trend of things that moving forward, robotic kidney transplants are going to be in more widespread use across the world. Europe has taken up in a big way, and I'm sure the United States will follow suit. India is done in at least 3 to 4 centers right now in India. So what else in future of the kidney surgery? Already 3-dimensional augmented reality has been combined with the robotic platform. There are studies which have been done and published in elite journals wherein the augmented reality is used to reconstruct, for example, in a kidney bearing a tumor. So they are reconstructing the whole picture of the kidney with the tumor, with the blood supply, and the surgeon gets a 3-dimensional model of it prior to operating, and he uses that and combines it with the robotic platform so that while operating, it is easy for him to identify key structures, not to remove more than what is required, definitely remove what is required to be removed so that there is no ambiguity in surgery. There is no subjectiveness left. So which again makes it a level playing field. And then artificial intelligence is everywhere. AI is in every sphere of our lives. And AI is being combined with the robotic platform, which is it's already being done. The metrics are being studied during the surgery so that the artificial intelligence is useful to help train future surgeons, residents, fellows, and novice surgeons to become better surgeons. So combining artificial intelligence has been major, and I think Professor Bhandari would agree because he is really getting into it in a big way. So just to summarize, so great strides have been made in the robotic technology, but the best of this technology is yet to come. That's what I feel. It's a win-win situation for patients and surgeons. Open surgery and laparoscopic surgery will continue to have a role. It's not going to be relegated to the history books. And robotic technology will continue to evolve. Artificial intelligence, augmented reality platforms are going to be combined into the robotic surgery platforms. And it is likely to become more and more affordable as more and more companies get their robots into play. So I've just made a couple of 3 short clips, actually 2 to 3 minutes each, just to get just for the general, lay people and the general public to get a feel of what we are doing when we talk about robotic surgery. So this is a video I just shot during a recent robotic surgery that I was performing. So this was a random video which I wanted to show. So I'm sitting, I was actually performing a robotic prostate cancer surgery. So you can see I'm controlling the masters. And these masters are the ones that control the movement of the instruments which are introduced into the patients through small 8 ports. And these are the robotic arms to which instruments have been fitted and which are doing the job. The central arm is carrying the camera. The other 2 arms are carrying the instruments. Other 3 arms actually. And I have a bedside assistant who is helping me perform the surgery. And all these arms are draped with sterile drapes, which are changed in every patient to maintain the sterility. So, and the assistant is looking at a screen and assisting me while performing the surgery. So this was a surgery which we did. It's called a pyeloplasty, in which I talked about. There was blockage of the kidney on both sides. This was a doctor, 45-year-old doctor, who had blockage of the kidney on both sides, and we used robotic surgery to repair both sides. So this is the 3-dimensional vision which we achieve. So where we are, opening up the soft part of the kidney, as in the pelvis, and removing the stones. He had multiple stones in various regions of the kidney. We removed those stones safely, and we repaired the blockage. So we could do all this, in 3 hours for both kidneys together. And so this is the kind of vision, and this is the kind of finesse that we achieve with the robotic instruments. And that's the assistant who's assisting me with his irrigation. So this is me, and this is us entering into every part of the kidney and removing the stones from within the kidney. So after this, I'll show you where robotics really scores. Now you can see that we are opening up the blockage, we're excising the blocked part, and this is where I think robotics really scores. The kind of stitching that we are able to do, it's just like you're stitching outside, you're stitching in a human body. I mean, you're stitching with your bare hands. So the robotic hands are as good as the human hands. So we have a watertight closure, and this is where I feel robotics has been a game changer. So this is one of the most common surgeries of the kidney done worldwide. This is the pyeloplasty. Similarly, we performed for the, first after the left side, we changed over to the right side and did a similar job on the right side. So I think it's more or less explains. So similarly, we had to, undo the blockage and stitch the renal pelvis. So one last video clip for a tumor bearing kidney for a partial nephrectomy. This is a slightly older video, so it's not the best HD quality. So this was a tumor in the right kidney. As you can see, there's a ball-like tumor in the anterior part of the right kidney. The arrow is pointing towards it. So those were the CT scan images. So here we have taken control of the right kidney blood supply. So this is the renal artery and the renal vein coming in as a common loop. And we are exposing the kidney surface to visualize the kidney tumor. We can see the bulge. So we have blocked the blood supply to the kidney, and that works for a few minutes. So we do it for about 25 to 30 minutes, during which time you can see the speed and the ease with which we are able to excise the tumor with a safe margin. The bleeding is controlled as we are proceeding. So all this is under ischemia time, as in we have blocked the blood supply to the kidney, and we have about 25 to 30 minutes to do this job, in which we have to save as much of the kidney as possible without compromising on the cancer control. So here we have almost excised the tumor, and now we are going to start stitching up the remaining healthy part of the kidney. So we are going to close the urine collecting system, and then control all the bleeding. So again, this part is where I feel we robotic surgeons really thank our stars, because doing this laparoscopically is not at all easy. So here we are doing the second layer of sutures. So it's literally like sitting within the body and operating. So this has been a good time to be a surgeon. Thankfully born in the right era. So we keep some hemostatic bolsters and we use some substance to clot the blood there so that it doesn't, those small bleeders are not there. And that's how we proceed with the, so we send the kidney tumor for biopsy and to ensure that we have clear margins and unclamp the blood supply. So we had blocked it. So all this was done in a period of 20 minutes, 20 to 25 minutes. And we make sure that there is no bleeding. And then we close up and we come out. So these were just a few examples which I could gather to show to the audience so that, you know, they would benefit from at least get a picture, inside view of how it is when we are operating. And, you know, I'm glad to take any questions, and I hope, you know, this has been useful. My presentation and a few video clips have been useful. Thank you very much again.
Brilliant talk, Ashwin. There's no doubt that you covered all the aspects, right, starting from, you know, how the surgery has evolved and from open to robotic, and how, you know, it has played a vital role in as far as kidney robotic surgery is concerned. You covered all the aspects, especially the kidney transplant, which is so vital in such complex surgeries. So very well done. I have few questions from my side for you.
Sure.
So
More than happy.
you did mention about robotic surgery being used as a sort of a nephron sparing surgery. If you
Yes.
mentioned that, in which you take out the tumor and rest of the kidney is saved. So in your experience, do you think that would be helpful in patients who've got bilateral tumors, or patients who have got single kidneys, or patients who have got, you know, diabetic patients who have got, you know, marginal kidneys and tumors as well? What's your
Definitely.
experience?
I think nephron sparing surgery, the concept of saving a kidney and removing the tumor came up in such patients. Patients who have poor kidney reserve or who have chronic kidney disease to begin with, who have tumors in both kidneys. So obviously we cannot remove both kidneys and render the patient anephric, although sometimes that has been done when it's very large tumors. So the concept of nephron sparing surgery has been in existence last 30, 40 odd years. And robotics has really been a game changer as far as facilitating that is concerned. We do offer robotic partial nephrectomy or nephron sparing surgery exclusively to patients who have tumors which are small, maybe around 4 to 5 centimeters, but generally not more than that, or in patients who have underlying chronic kidney disease, or, you know, who are diabetics, who have kidney dysfunction, or who have tumors in both kidneys. They are the perfectly suited patients for partial, you know, nephrectomy. It's really benefits such patients.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. And to further that, if you talk about technology being used, you mentioned about, you know, augmented reality and artificial intelligence. So would you like to mention about, you know, using Indocymine Green and, you know,
Oh yes, definitely.
how
I
help
was
you in performing fascial?
Yeah, I had half a mind to show a video about that too. Although I do not have any personal experience of using Indocyanine Green, there are many centers across the world which are using it, and it has really helped people, help surgeons to preserve the remaining kidney accurately, excise only the tumor. So, what is a perfect partial nephrectomy? We want to remove only the tumor with as less a margin as possible, and you know, preserve as much of the kidney mass as possible. So Indocyanine Green combined on the XI platform So has been a really good development, and I've seen videos of people who have done that. I know. Would you have some experience about using indocyanine green? I do not personally.
Yeah, I do, sir. What I want to mention is that when we use technology in the form of indocyanine green, we are when we try to do nephron sparing surgery, the whole idea concept is that we are trying to prevent damage to the other kidney. So when we are
Yes.
trying to do nephron, when we are using indocyanine green, we're able to see that blood supply or blood vessel which is supplying to the tumor, and only that blood vessel is controlled and the tumor
Exactly.
excised. So in other way, only the tumor is deprived of blood supply, not the rest of the kidney, and
Yeah.
that won't be possible with naked eye unless you shift the frame to infrared and just look at the kidney by injecting ICG. So that's where technology comes in. And that's where robot
Yeah, the
gains those
XI
strong.
platform, I'm sure you use the XI platform. The
Yeah,
SI platform, I don't think it's possible to, because we don't have Firefly technology on the SI platform.
that's correct. That's correct.
Mm.
Ashwin, one more thing. As far as patient when they come for robotic surgery, and I'm sure when they come to you, the most important thing they ask after kidney surgery is how quickly they can get back to work. So, what sort of difference you can tell the patient can experience if they choose between open and a robotic surgery as far as getting back to work is concerned? Because in our part of the world, most of the patients are bread earners for the family, and for them to get back to work, like quality work is important, very very important. So, what is your experience in that?
So when it comes to surgeries like removal of the kidney or a pyeloplasty, for example, reconstructive surgeries, I think definitely minimally invasive surgery scores over open surgeries, as you know. So because the length of the scar, the pain related to the operation, all that is less. So I think pyeloplasty and surgeries of removal of the full kidney, for example, people are back to work within a week or 10 days of surgery. But when it comes to partial nephrectomy, that is when we remove only a part of the kidney, uh, although we have really done well as far as discharge from the hospital. So we are discharging our partial nephrectomies on day 2 or day 3. Our radical nephrectomy is on day 1. Our pyeloplasty is on day 1 or day 2. The rest required after a partial nephrectomy, we are slightly more conservative because we have the remnant kidney. There's always a chance that it might bleed. So around a week to 10 days of time off work. So I would say a couple of weeks after a partial removal of the kidney, but after a full removal of the kidney or a pyeloplasty surgery, I'm looking at somewhere between 5 to 7 days off work, not more than that.
Yeah, brilliant. So, and talking about pyeloplasties, Dr. Ashwin, I suppose that can be done from any age group. You talk about pediatric age
Yes,
group, or
yes,
about
absolutely, absolutely.
adolescents who present with this anomaly later on in their life. So, what do you have to say about that, sir?
So I would say that we have done pyeloplasties even in kids who are as young as 7 or 8 years old, to people who are like in their 40s and 50s. So one thing, surprisingly, kids recover really fast, and I've really seen that. You know, pediatric pyeloplasties, I've seen them recover really fast, and they are back to school, say within a week of the surgery. Even the seniors who have undergone the surgery have done extremely well. So I do not think there was much of a difference between the kids and the older adults. I do not have experience of performing it in very small children, like who are a year old or two. Probably some pediatric surgeons could shed some light on that aspect.
Yeah, we have a pediatric surgeon here at our place who does do robotic surgery on smaller kids,
Mm-hmm.
and he does have a very good experience with that. And the kids are, as you said, the indolent recovery itself, it's so
Mm-hmm.
faster, but it does help in this age group. Um, Ashwin, other thing is about follow up of these patients. Kidney cancer patients and doing robotic surgeries. Are these follow up different than what you do after open surgery, or?
Not really, if I think about it. So the follow-up of a patient who undergoes surgery, it pertains mainly to the reason for the surgery. For example, kidney cancer, for example, pelviureteric junction obstruction. So whether it's open or laparoscopy or robotics, the principles of follow-up, at least according to me, would remain the same. I can't really think of a indication in which I would really change my follow-up protocol based on the modality of surgery used. So for me, kidney cancer follow-up has to do with the grade of the cancer, has to do with the biologic behavior of the cancer, and how the initial follow-up has been. So especially about kidney remnant kidney function and such things. So I don't think that I really have a different follow-up protocol for depending on the modality of the surgery. It's rather to do with the primary disease for which the operation was done.
That's true. That's true. So one message I want to send across is what happens surgery is almost similar. The follow-up and everything remains the same. Only most important thing is the outcomes and the benefits that one would experience after undergoing a robotic surgery. One more thing I want to mention is, and you would agree, Ashwin, is that some kidney tumors are not seen on the surface. They're deep down in the kidney. That's where,
absolutely,
that's where technology like Tile Pro, where you actually can do an ultrasound with the
exactly.
help of a robot during surgery and be very precise in cutting on the
Absolutely.
kidney. So
that is
what
something, that is something that I could have covered. Just for the audience sake, so sometimes these kidney tumors are not seen on the surface of the kidney. They are situated well within the kidney. And how do we know where exactly we have to open up the kidney and extract the tumor? So we use intraoperative ultrasound probes to exactly locate the tumor and do an accurate job of excising the tumor. So this is called intraoperative ultrasound, and it's integrated into the robot through the Tile Pro technology. Definitely a very big help when we are doing such tumors. That's something, that's where again this robotic platform is very useful.
Absolutely. I agree with you, especially in tumor intense, suture intense, in fact, areas, as you mentioned rightly in your presentation, that where you need to suture.
Absolutely. That's been a game changer. I can't imagine doing a laparoscopic.
The stability that the arm provides to you while taking those vital sutures in very key areas, deep areas, are very important.
Thank you, Ashwin, and thank you, Santosh, for spending your 2 consecutive weekends with us. It was a really very informative and simplified talk which a patient has to know, and all these surgeons do explain to these patients, individual patient, before they are prepared for surgery. One comment I would like to extend, I 100% agree with Ashwin that children recover the quickest, but at the same time, mind you, because my 45% of the work was pediatric urology, and I can tell you, they go down the hill very quickly. And I always used to give a simile for children is that they are like veterinary patients, where we need to know what is their problem and we need to find a solution before the problem manifests, because small children, the blood volume is so less.
Exactly.
So that is off the remark for between us B2B rather than for the patient. Whatever you heard, this is I'm addressing to the patients or potential patients who will witness this video. This is very clear what these 2 gentlemen talk, that surgeons and surgery is continuously making efforts to improve the patient outcomes. And let us not forget, for this, patients are major partners. Surgery is not at the end point. It would never be at the end point. It would be evolving for all times to come. And the kind of help we get from patients, the feedback we get from patients helps us to continuously make efforts to make surgery simple, less painful, less complication free, and so-called minimally invasive or even non-invasive. And Ashwin has clarified very clearly the difference between minimally invasive surgery and a maximally invasive surgery. But the point is, to be re-emphasized n number of times, is that robots are just to improve the cognition of the surgeon. It is not competitive. It is complementary to the surgeon. No surgeon should feel threatened. No patient should feel threatened that I trust the doctor and not the robot. No, it is to assist. It is to make surgery more safe. Ashwin alluded about a new area about artificial intelligence and what you call the augmented reality and all. And that is an area, incidentally, I am very much interested in research in that area. So let me tell you something about what you could expect in years to come as patients, what could happen. Currently, the robots, very few robots, so to say, help surgeon to take any decision, except for the orthopedic Mako robot, wherein with the assistance of the surgeon, the procedure is executed a day before almost. And everything is measured. How much would be ligamentous strain? How much, they are all computerized measurements. What size of prosthesis would be needed? How much would be the valgus deformity? Valgus achieve surgeon. And this is what interaction between the patient data, 3D reconstruction of patient CD, and the surgeon. And the software is then fed into the robot. And I talked to n number of orthopedic joint replacement surgeons, and though they have an overriding key to change the decision of the robot, but nobody believes themselves more than the robot. And if you see, the first robot was proved to be 33% more accurate than surgical decision. And it's not a competition. It is, you have to go at the back end. Why this happens? Because surgeons, take a surgeon with my background of 50 years of experience in surgery, it is one single 50 years. Whereas the current technology can magnify my decision making by 5 million surgeons multiplied by 50. These surgeons cannot collect at one place to do physically to do one surgery. But these surgeons' data is available, their experience is available, and we can collate them and build the models which would be much more accurate than one. So next thing which is likely to see the day of the light in surgery is that the robots would become smart and they will help surgeon to take decision. And two examples are, one of them is Mako, another is Yomi robot from Neosys for the dental implant robot. And that is a robot. And same thing we are expecting here. Now, how are we going to get to this road of what you call automation? Forget about no robot in our lifetime would be totally autonomous robot. It would be always a surgeon assisted robot. And how do we expect? And that we expect, again, with the help of patients, where large number of data are available. More the data in these models is available, more accurately these models will perform. And it's not only that, the big data these models are data hungry. They need to be constantly fed with new data to really make them accurate. So there is a lot of exciting things coming, and the surgeons are always progressing towards how can they make the surgery more safe and patient friendly. So I think Vattikuti Foundation has this missing link of we never involved the patient over these years. We were focused on surgeons and hospitals and technologies and procedures, but now we have taken a decision to involve patients as equal partners. You will see a lot of programs coming up for you, I thank Dave and Joanna for the hard work, and I would thank Santosh and this, and please continue patronizing and educating patients for a larger interest in establishing a suspicion-free partnership between surgeon and patient, because the environments are not so conducive. There is so much of maligning of surgeons and clinicians, which is not true. The best outcomes are when the patients have faith in their surgeons and surgeons go to the last mile to keep their trust. So thank you very much, and handing over back to Dave.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for your information today and your time to present your material, Dr. Malia. It was really excellent. You live up to what you said at the start of your talk, that the holy grail of medicine is patient information, and I can understand that you believe that in all the content you presented today. So
Thank you very
thank
much,
you
Dave.
for that. Dr. Wegenkar, once again, thank you.
Good night. Thank you,
Bye.
Santosh. Thank you, Dave.
Goodbye.
Thank you,
Bye,
Gio.
Ashwin. Thank you,
Thank
Dave.
you.
Bye, Joanna.
Thanks again, gentlemen. I really appreciate it. It was a very informative program. So thank you.
Okay.